Greetings to all. Welcome to CEC lecture. The topic of analysis is Electoral Systems. In this lecture, we shall explain the significance of the process of elections and thereby look at various types of electoral systems. For the purpose of this lecture, we shall discuss three important electoral systems. First, past the post, proportional representation, mixed representation. This lecture shall also elaborate on advantages and disadvantages of the three electoral systems that we'll be looking at. First, past the post, proportional representation, mixed representation. This lecture shall be of great use for the learners from the discipline of political science with keen insights on looking at elections, electoral systems, comparative politics, amongst others. To begin with, what do we mean by the concept of election? As we decode the term election from collinsdictionary.com, elections signify a process in which people vote to choose a person or a group of people. Further, election, it is a process wherein there is a process of electing. So, the meaning of election, it's an act or process of electing, reading from merriam-webster.com. Election, to decode the term further, taking reference to Cambridge English Dictionary, election is a time where people vote in order to choose someone for a political or official job. So, what we see here is that there is one concept of election and there are multiple inputs, looking at it as a process, looking at it as a process of electing, as a time of choosing a leader. Significance of elections is very important to deliberate on because elections are an important process. It is important to understand that leadership, continuity, change, bringing new leaders into the system are all contingent and dependent on the process of elections. Types of electoral systems impact candidate selection, campaigning, mobilization, socialization, voting patterns, amongst others. So, seen in this scenario, it becomes essential to understand the elections with the specific focus towards electoral systems in a comparative perspective. Now, it is important to know that elections are very important for the overall practice of democracy, education, civic issues. Seen in this regard, we come to the concept of understanding the term electoral system. Now, what do we mean by an electoral system? An electoral system is often known as a voting system. It is the manner in which votes are turned into seats. Electoral system implies set of laws that govern how elections and referendums are held and decided. There are different countries, they use different electoral systems to conduct elections to decide the members elected for the legislature. What do we mean by an electoral system? Electoral system implies the rules that define what the structure of outcome will be, namely district seats, how people will vote, ballot, how votes will converted into seats, formula. So, the three important aspects of electoral system, that is, any electoral system must include three fundamental elements. What are they? Constituency size, electoral formula, ballot structure. The three main types of electoral systems that we will be looking at: plurality electoral systems, majority electoral systems, and proportional representation. Electoral processes, they give meaning to the principles of political equality, popular control. So therefore, it becomes essential to understand electoral systems. It is through electoral processes that leaders are held accountable by the people for providing security and for ensuring development. So therefore, it becomes important to understand and know about electoral systems, electoral processes if therein. Electoral system, as just discussed, it is the formula. It is the formula by which votes are aggregated in a democracy to determine the winners and losers of seat in an assembly or office holding. In the same light, plurality majority systems, they are founded on the idea that the candidate or party receiving the highest number of votes, which implies that is more than any other or a certain number of votes, that is 50% plus 1, an absolute majority, is declared the winner. Single member districts, that is first past the post, alternative vote or the two-round system or multi-member districts may be used in such a system. Common plurality or majoritarian systems are those, that is, they are known as the first past the post. They are also known as the alternative vote and the lesser used block vote. The two-round system features a first round poll from which two winners emerge who then compete in the second round of elections. One disadvantage of these systems is that when we go by various academic literature and various practices is that they generally produce, but this is an important advantage, that they produce clear winners or winning coalitions or majority coalitions. In the same light, one disadvantage is that the two-round systems can result in manufactured majorities and disproportionate outcomes. First past the post system, it has several advantages, namely, that is when operated with single member constituencies, it provides for a direct relationship between the member of the legislature and the local constituency. It is often pointed out that the system is secret and simplest from the point of view of the voter. Another advantage of first past the post system is that when operated with the single member constituencies, as we were discussing, because elections are contested at the constituency level, therefore it can be said that there is a degree of what can be said as local control over parties' choice of candidate, and that in the same light, parties must take some account of the constituency's wishes while selecting a candidate. Now, disadvantages of first past the post system is that it is often argued, once again taking reflections from the way there have been criticism of first past the post system in electoral systems where it is practiced, it has been pointed out that it cannot be relied upon to provide a legislature reflecting the multiple shades, especially the various shades of opinion expressed at the election, and that it does not necessarily place in power a government supported by the majority of the electorate. In the same light, the next disadvantage of first past the post system that has been pointed out is that it's a winner takes all system, that is, that can deny representation in the legislature to quite substantial levels of minority opinions. Moving forward, let's now understand the alternative vote system. We look at the advantages of the alternative vote system. Herein, with the requirement that the winning candidate to obtain a majority of the vote, a situation is therefore avoided where a candidate can be elected on a little over 1/3 of the vote and where there are 3 candidates who are relatively evenly supported by the voters. The disadvantages of the alternative vote systems are that is, it does not necessarily reflect the wishes of the electorate. Then there is an issue concerning with reference to degree of proportionality, that is, members elected in proportion to voter support is greater under alternative vote than under plurality, but it does not achieve the degree of proportionality of proportional representation systems. Proportional representation, that is the electoral system family of proportional representation, it is founded on the premise of converting a party's or a group's overall votes into a corresponding proportion of seats in an elected body. A party, therefore, that receives say 30% of the vote, for example, will receive 30% of the seats. Multi-member districts are required in all proportional representation systems. List proportional representation and single transferable votes are important types of proportional representation systems. Proportional representation as an electoral system, they are most widely used electoral system in the world today. It takes into account, as just pointed out, the percentage of total votes that a political party receives and how then it is translated into the number of seats that the party will have. Once again, as we pointed out, for example, if a party wins 40% of the vote, they will receive 40% of seats in parliament. Let's now look at main types of proportional representation system. Party list, that is, parties create a list of candidates and seats that are won in proportion to the percentage of votes received. Single transferable vote, that is, voters rank candidates by order of preference. Next, mixed member proportional representation, that is, voters make 2 selections, one for candidate and one for a party. Semi-proportional systems, that is, some systems seeks to balance the advantages and disadvantages of various systems. In parallel voting, plurality or majoritarian systems and proportional systems are used side by side. These are known as mixed member majoritarian systems and mixed member proportional systems. When results of 2 types of elections are linked with seat allocations at the proportional representation level being dependent on what happens in the plurality, majority or other district seats and compensating for any disproportionality that arises there, the system is called as mixed member proportional system. When taking some very important inputs from ACE Electoral Knowledge Network, the report is very readily available online also. ACE Electoral Knowledge Network points out that is when the 2 sets of elections are detached and distinct and are not dependent on each other for seat allocation, the system is called as a parallel system. When mixed member proportional systems, that is, generally results in proportional outcomes, a parallel system is likely to give results the proportionality of which falls somewhere between that of a plurality majority and that of a proportional representation system. Proportional systems, therefore, systems of proportional representations, they are designed to match the percentage of vote cast in an election for a particular party or candidate with the percentage of seats gained within a body. Other examples, as we just discussed, are the single transferable vote system used in elections, wherein the voters rank the candidates by their order of preference. After each round, the second preference votes of the eliminated candidates are transferred amongst the political parties until enough winners emerge to fill the seats. An important advantage of proportional representation systems is that they can contribute to inclusive politics and facilitate minority representation. An important disadvantage of proportional representation is that there is proliferation of minor parties in legislature as a result of it, and this can result in unstable government. That is, elections of a number of parties with no one party having a majority in the legislature, which may result in unstable government and uncertainty as parties trade with each other to form coalitions and alliances. Now, it becomes very essential to understand herein that what is the significance of understanding electoral systems? Why should we look at electoral systems in a comparative sense? Because we all know that elections are very integral to policy making, to leadership, and therefore one must look at them, analyze them in a comparative sense. Electoral systems should be consciously designed, therefore, to fit the country, or to say context, or that is the manner which should be consistent with the important needs of the nation, of the community. Further, it is often pointed out in practice, because countries and especially urban areas are highly diverse now, urbanization has presented new challenges for any electoral system. Therefore, many scholars, practitioners, specialists urge that any electoral system should be designed, should be worked out well to blend and balance the need of inclusivity with other aims, in particularly accountability. Further, it is very essential to understand for any student, policymaker, practitioner, researcher, that how electoral processes work. It is essential to understand the nature of elections and their relationship to political parties and political behavior, because this knowledge, this perspective, this comparative analysis task can also provide a very important understanding of the alternatives, looking at the advantages and disadvantages. Further, quoting from a very important work, that is Elections, Electoral Systems and Party Systems, a research guide available at idea.int, that is, electoral systems and their understanding present to us a greater understanding of what elections actually mean for the citizens, what elections imply amongst the citizens. This would show that elections are not just about majority rule. There are more issues that are associated with elections, with the democratic apparatus, civic education, virtue, amongst others. Further, more knowledge and awareness of electoral systems would allow for more meaningful democracy. Democracy that combines what is the desirable outcome, that is inclusivity, the need to have transparent administration, the need to have leaders accountable, amongst others. Therefore, once again quoting from this very important report, Elections, Electoral Systems and Party Systems, a resource guide available at idea.int, that is, seeing an electoral process as a process and not just as an event can also be very helpful to prevent manipulation, to prevent violence. Further, awareness of the role that electoral systems play in political party systems can be very helpful for citizens in order to understand the dangers to democracy. So therefore, dear learners, it becomes very essential to understand that elections are a very significant phenomena. Elections are a very important process that imply the task of choosing a leader. Elections are significant for democracy, for civic education, for the level of debate in the polity. Electoral systems give meaning to this idea of political equality, popular control. Electoral systems are very essential to be understood. Plurality majority system, alternative vote system, first past the post system, proportional representation, mixed systems, amongst others. Each electoral system has its own advantages and disadvantages, and a comparative analysis of various electoral systems becomes very useful to offer meaningful inputs with reference to the process of elections, with reference to transparency, accountability, inclusive governance, and above all, situating the need of governance with reference to the context of the changing time, with reference to needs of the polity. Do refer to this very important resources available at idea.int, Elections, Electoral Systems and Party Systems, a resource guide as a valuable future reading reference material. We hope that the lecture on electoral systems presented to you significant inputs and insights. We look forward to positive, encouraging feedback from you all. Thank you very much.